In Chapter 3, we talked about selections. And we need to talk a little bit more about, it's not really an advanced feature, but I don't think the book covers this enough. And that is what happens when you've got tools that aren't adequate. So for instance, now the quick selection tool is one of the best tools ever. And I can quickly grab most of this penguin, for instance. And it does an okay job at even picking up a lot of these other things down here. I'll even make a smaller brush down here. Kind of have to go back and look what happens there. I'll zoom into this spot. So what happened here is I was trying to pick up this bit of lighter colored image, and it didn't quite work so well because this part of the sand back there is very close to this. So it had a hard time, and notice what happened. It wound up selecting most of this sand. Okay, now I can go back here and pick up more of this jazz over here and try to get close to the edge. And the problem is Photoshop does a great job, but sometimes it's just difficult. So I want to introduce you to a new tool here. And by the way, I can do also this thing. I could hold down the Option key and subtract this sand area and do a pretty good job. But there's more to it. I'd like to introduce you to the Quick Mask tool. This is the Quick Mask tool. It's the letter Q, and letter Q toggles the Quick Mask on and off. It's also this tool over here. So if I click there, it's the same thing. Oh, these are the options. This is the only tool I believe in this area over here that doesn't have an options bar up here. In order to get to the options for Quick Mask, you have to double click it. Okay, well first let me demonstrate what the Quick Mask does. So all of the tools that we've looked at so far have been about marching ants to make your selection. And that's cool and everything, but we have to use these tools up here. Well, what happens with another situation where the marching ant based tools don't work so well? That's where we get to use the brush tool. Now, I'm going to use the paintbrush, but I'm going to have to be in in Quick Mask mode. And look what happens here. Now I want to pick up the penguin's feet. So what I can do is use the paintbrush to make the selection. So I'll go into Quick Mask mode, and here's how it works. If I want to paint selection, okay, so this kind of stuff here, I would paint with white. Okay, so that's selection. If I want to paint a masked out area, I would paint with black. Now nothing's happening so far. Okay, let me do this. Let me paint over here and mask out part of this penguin's belly. So I'll make my brush a little bit bigger. Now I'm masking out the belly. Okay, so now when I go back to marching ant mode, boom, this is not selected. So if I paint across here, that section doesn't get painted. Undo. Okay, so let's go back to Quick Mask. So now if I want to make sure that this is selection, I will paint white, and that is my selected area. By the way, use your keyboard shortcut X for switching back on this. See how this works? Well, that's clicking it, but if I hit X, I can just flip back and forth. This is another reason to use your keyboard shortcuts with your one hand and use the mouse with your other hand. Okay, so let's focus on what's going on down here. So I can make my paintbrush a little bit smaller, and I can paint selection. By the way, I'm going to make my brush hard edged, so that's Shift right bracket a couple of times. There we go. And I can pick up the area here. It's a little hard to see, isn't it? I'm trying to select something that it's difficult to see through this mask. Okay, let's take care of this with the options. Let's change this. Let's reverse this. Let's change this to the colors indicate selected areas. Okay, so now we'll go back to Quick Mask. Oh, now I can see what I'm doing here, but now I have to switch my values here to be painted. By the way, this works really, really well with the Wacom tablet. Unfortunately, my tablet is on the fritz right now, so I'm having to use a mouse, which does kind of stink. I'm also going to turn off my mask here just because it's a little bit difficult to see. Now I'm trying to avoid the sand. I'm trying to see what I can see with the penguin's feet here. And let's see. Sometimes I turn off quick mask and try to get a good look at what's going on here. I think is that sand? Kind of looks like sand. Let's go over here. Okay, there's a little bit of kind of some difficulty. It looks like hair hanging off there. So let's make this brush really, really small and just put a little bit of selection on that area. Even over here, just a little bit. That's not bad. Let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, let's go back to marching ants. And I can continue, by the way, with my other tools. Let's see, I can go get his head. And it does get a little weird here. I can make my brush way smaller. I can grab most of that. And again, the one tool does a pretty good job here, the quick selection. Let's grab some of this over here. And again, it's grabbing the center section. It gets a little weird also on the top of this beak, or is it a bill? Because the color of that specular highlight is so close to the sky color that Photoshop has a hard time determining that. So again, we'll go back to quick mask. That's okay. So now I need to go, okay, so I think what I might do here is go back to my brush tool, and I'll paint a little bit of this in here just to kind of clean that up. And this is what quick mask does really well. Again, you know, most things look pretty good using the marching ants, but sometimes you need a little bit more detail. So that's what we have quick mask for. Okay, I might come here and take care of this one just a little bit more. All right, now this, I'm going to reverse my values again. So I'll switch this from selected to masked, go back into quick mask, and okay, now I can paint this business down here a little closer to the beak. I might make my brush just a little bit bigger so I can see it. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, I accidentally hit that. I can undo Command Option Z a couple times. Yeah, this does work better with the Wacom tablet. And I'll smooth that out over there. Okay, and I'm going to click on the X key to swap out and then take care of this stuff in here. Oops, I'm sorry, I had to go the opposite direction, didn't I? I want to actually paint this as mask. Okay, smaller brush. I can also zoom in a little bit more. Now, you'll notice that the pixels separate here. There's a grid that goes on there when you zoom into a certain value. I don't like this, so I'm going to turn off the pixel grid. There, I can see a little bit better now. Okay. Make my brush a little bit smaller as it gets into this gap down here. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to have to smooth this out here just a little bit. There we go. So again, I'm using two hands. It just tends to work better. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Let me zoom out a little bit. That looks very nice. And I will continue on. I may not grab the other penguins here. We'll see what happens. Let's go back to quick selection. And I'm going to grab all this stuff over here. Bigger brush. Does a nice job. a little wonky in there. Make this a little bit smaller. A little bit smaller. Nice. Try to get this edge over here. Oops, and I accidentally painted out there. I'm going to Command Z to undo that and zoom in a little tighter on this whole area. And again, Photoshop is having a difficult time separating that particular part of the wing from its background. That's very, very close in terms of tone. And this is another reason why Quick Mask is actually very, very cool. So Quick Mask Q. Okay, so I could be a little bit tighter on some of these areas. Okay, so we'll go back to my brush tool and make my brush just a little bit bigger there. Okay, and I'll paint with some white here just to kind of take this edge off. And a little bit smaller down at the end. And you'll get the hang eventually about how far you can go into or out of the shape that you're trying to do here. I'd actually like to focus a little bit more on this guy up here. Let's see, we'll switch this to black for a second here. So this is masking. And maybe smoothing this out a little bit. I'm going to switch this because I think I need to, there we go, that's nice. And you can kind of see through the mask where you need to go. Go back to hit the B key. Oh, I don't like how I did that. One more time. There we go. Much better. I think, okay, I could probably push that out a little bit more. Hit the X key to work with white. Okay. And maybe a little bit of smoothing, just a little bit right there. Okay, how are the things looking otherwise? Okay, so we've got to go back and get this other wing over here. And I think we're going to avoid this penguin over here. Okay, so one last shot using quick selection. Well, that worked, but look what happened. It picked up that part of the wing. And I also want to grab this bit of wing over here. Let me zoom into this. Okay, smaller brush. Ooh. Okay, let's quick mask a bit of this. Okay, we're going to paint this out using black and make a slightly bigger brush there. Okay, that's all right. Now let's also mask out this business over here. A little bit much there. Let's smooth that out a little bit. There we go. There's a little bit of pink there. Can you see that? So I'm going to wipe this out. There we go. Sometimes that happens when the marching ant base tool we've chosen doesn't quite work well. It doesn't quite see that edge. Okay, we're pretty close here. I'm happy with this. If I wanted to go back over here, hit the X key just a little bit. Okay. Make a smaller brush and just take this out here. Okay, I can live with that. Let's see how this looks. Okay, penguin selected. Let's go back to marching ants.